Hello, and welcome to the Christchurch Fox Chapel podcast. It's the fastest growing conservative, evangelical, charismatic, Anglican, non-denominational podcast in the entire Fox Chapel and Cranberry area. I say this because Ben's got COVID and a different pastor is joining me today.
Hello.
Justin Cassidy, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
You're a pastor at Crossroads Church North.
Yep. North. Yep. Crossroads Church, Pittsburgh North.
And we've known each other, I think, for 6 months or so, which is great.
Yeah. I think it's been longer than I think I realized, but it was at least pre-Christmas that I started coming.
Yeah. So this is your kind of hideout church.
Yes.
On your day off.
Yes. Yeah, so Saturday, I attend the Saturday services. I guess it'd be fair to say kind of a member. I mean, I haven't gone through membership classes, but I'm here I try to be here every week, so.
Yeah, I know. You're one of our most regular members, and you actually run your own church.
Yeah. What I do is I just steal your sermon, and then I just go and say it at my church.
I know, I've watched it on YouTube, and you say it better.
Yeah.
Well, I love that we do this, and what's fascinating about meeting another pastor from another church is, we've discovered that I think me, you, and Ben basically agree on everything,
yes.
which is really fun because that old kind of idea of siloed denominations, those guys over there, they think this and we think that, and we're all enemies, and it turns out actually. It's not just the basics we agree on. There's all this crazy detail.
Right. And that's, I think, we've split ourselves up so unnecessarily. Like, you find out like, oh, actually, I love the gospel and so do you. And this is awesome. Like we should be, hand in hand together, brothers and sisters.
Yeah. It's like a little vision of what it could and should be like. And,
amen.
Some of the Church of England, where I come from, is really kind of everything. So all the denominations you have in the US are found under one roof over there. And in the US, I think, just being more of a melting pot, you've got all these different denominations. The Lutherans come from wherever it is, Scandinavia, and you've got sort of Swiss people and Germans, and you've got Presbyterians from Scotland, and it's, and then what we find out is actually, over these several hundred years, we've all been reading the same book. Yeah,
and that's the thing, right? Is like if we just open up the book and take a good read, we'll come to a lot of similar answers.
The enemy's been lying to us.
Yes.
And we're looking at these lies in our series. Today's lie is a great one for Allegheny County, really. A great one for America. And that is, you should be comfortable. So Satan slithers in, and what we find is Jesus is very uncomfortable.
Right.
He's in real need in the wilderness. He's hungry. Satan preys on all of that. And we're digging into it. What's interesting is that Jesus is kind of recapitulating or fixing some old stuff from Deuteronomy and wilderness talk and the people of God and God's provision and were they faithful, and many, many questions swirling around.
Yeah, that's like the really interesting part of this whole thing is how much Deuteronomy has to do with what Jesus, specifically here, but then also, just the whole context. And it's so important for people to be reading the Old Testament. I read Deuteronomy in a week. I just sat down and said, I'm going to just,
that's cool.
Get all of this in, because there's so many things you need to get from that to really get a great grasp in the New Testament, really.
Yeah. No, that's really good. And then Ben said, I think last week, that everything Jesus quotes is actually from Deuteronomy in his response to Satan.
Exactly.
So here's we'll start with Luke 4, but we'll definitely need to jump around a bit. But in Luke 4, which I'm not looking at on my screen right now, Luke 4, hear that typing? We'll look at just verse 3. So, well, actually, I'll dig back a little bit. So verse 2. For 40 days, being tempted by the devil, and he ate nothing during those days. And when they were ended, he was hungry. And the devil said to him, if you are the Son of God, command this stone to become bread. And Jesus answered him, it is written, brackets in Deuteronomy 8, man shall not live by bread alone. So here we find Jesus in the wilderness 40 days. Right. He's hungry. Satan says, here you go. Make some. You should be comfortable. Do you want something to eat?
Right.
Why don't you just make some bread?
Yeah.
Why don't you make this wilderness a little bit less wild.
Yeah.
Settle in.
That's great. Like, that call to comfort is so hard in one way because I eat bread, he's not calling him to do anything sinful.
No.
It's bread, it's comfort, it's good.
Yeah.
And it's like, but where's this coming from? What's the source? Who's calling me to this? And the reality is if you're finding comfort in anything that's not God, that's death covered in chocolate.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And actually we find it so much harder, I think, to see the need for God when we are comfortable.
Right.
So why does Satan want us comfortable?
To numb us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to be busy. We're going to be looking after other things. We're now going to be worried about the things we've acquired.
Yep.
And
how often is that, right? Where
Yeah.
you spend your time just trying to keep the things you've already have. And, so you've, mortgage, you have a mortgage you're trying to pay, you got car payments, you got all these things that you already have, but you've tied yourself to them and, you work like a dog to enjoy them for how long,
Yeah.
Like there's the eternal aspect of like you get them for a very short time, but then also you work over 40 hours just to afford the house that, you come home, sleep, and then go right back to work.
Yeah.
And it's just, again, it's chocolate coated death. It's chocolate coated, you think you're getting something sweet and then the inside, it's rotten.
Oh, it's like that prank where you literally dip an onion in chocolate and then you give it to a kid and say, have this thing.
That must be an English thing.
It's very, well, the toffee apple that you sort of see at the fairground.
Yeah.
In England. So you stick an onion in there instead of an apple. And it's hilarious.
Horrible.
It is actually very cruel. Yeah. It's a terrible thing. So like in your church, if you start handing these things out,
right,
folks will know where it came from. Even it's this human nature. Okay, so it's not just a matter, the rich people are bad. It's human nature.
Right.
I got my car, 7 years old, nice car. I just got it washed, and I went for the nice one with the wax and everything. So really, really cool. And then I'm like, I don't want to drive this because it's going to not look like this anymore.
Yeah.
And then it was like a rainy day. I said to Kat, let's take your car, love. And then anyway, the punishment came. There's a new bird nest in the tree outside our house, and I parked my car on the bombing run, and it's been destroyed. And it's not just landed on the glass; it's gone into the grill at the front and just trashed the whole front of the car.
Yikes.
So I'm like, okay, but it became a little idol. And it's a car that I've owned this car for 4 years,
right.
It's just a normal car, but
and it's crazy the things we can make idols. Like, anything, John Calvin talks about, like, our hearts are idol factories, and we make oftentimes these silly things, these idols, but then there's something behind that, right? Like your 7-year-old car is an idol because you put an effort to clean that. And because you are so worthy of your own, worship and praise, we shouldn't mess this up because you would be stepping on my glory and my hard work. And it's like,
and then people they won't see how great I am because I've got this shiny thing. They'll just see this guy driving around with filth all over the front.
Yes. Yeah, and it's crazy. The silliness that we, and every idol is silliness and doesn't make sense because evil doesn't make sense. But, we continue to do it. We continue to find things
over and over again.
Yeah.
Speaking of patterns, I think it's useful just to look at Deuteronomy 8, which is really the thing that's being fixed and dealt with and quoted in Luke 4. I noticed that you turned to your paper Bible quicker than I did my computer one, which has been a source of great banter and conflict on this podcast. Well done. So we're not going to read the whole of Deuteronomy 8. It's just quite long. But the chapter makes it really clear the wilderness period, I'm quoting here from the ESV Study Bible, was not only a punishment but also a test. While contesting the deprivation of the wilderness with the abundance, contrasting the deprivation of the wilderness with the abundance of the land, the chapter implies that the land itself is also a test. So in other words, you learn in the wilderness how to rely on God. And when things become plentiful, actually, if you've not learned those wilderness lessons, you're going to be distracted by all this stuff. So Here, for example, just to pull out a few bits and pieces from the chapter, God is promising in the wilderness to the people of God. They're in there for 40 years in the wilderness, which is kind of relevant to the 40 days that Jesus is also in the wilderness. And he says, I'm going to give you this land of vines and fig trees and pomegranates, a land of olive trees and honey. And you can imagine if you're hungry and thirsty and you hear these things. Yeah. I mean, food talk. There's always food talk when you're hungry. A land which you will eat bread without scarcity. That's a wonderful little sort of image of God's provision. It's going to be really wonderful. But then he says in verse 11, take care lest you forget the Lord your God by not keeping his commandments and rules and statutes. So in other words, lest when you've eaten and are full and have built good houses and live in them, and when your herds and flocks multiply and your silver and gold are multiplied and all that you have is multiplied, then your heart be lifted up and you forget the Lord your God. So there's that idea that the more we have, the more we forget.
Yeah. A practical example of this is my dad, he does heating and air conditioning for a living. Yeah. And he'll do side jobs as well. And he would say, it always felt like God would just give him just enough that he would still need to pray for side jobs to say, Lord, I need this money. I need this work. And he felt like it was better for him to be week by week getting a new job once a week than to have them all lined up. And then he didn't need to pray. Right. And I think that, there's that, that's really what it's talking about there. Mm-hmm. Once you get all this stuff, if you haven't learned that this stuff is just take it or leave it and that God's it, man, you're going to fall in love with this stuff and you'll be right back to the wilderness. Yeah. In surrounded by plenty, right? But you'll be in the wilderness. Right. Well, and that's really, even this is a recapitulation of what happens in the garden, right? Where he's surrounded by plenty. He has everything he could have. Yeah. And he sins, and then that throws him out. He gets kicked out of the garden. He gets thrown out into the wilderness. For his own good. Yep, for his own good. But the penalty of sin is separation from God. Right. And that is what truly the wilderness is separation from God. Yeah. To be out of his presence. And, and so he's saying, when I bring you back, don't, there's a lot of good things about God, a lot of great stuff that I will give you, but understand it's not God's stuff. He is God alone. Yeah. And that good stuff just points to him being good. Well, actually, and that's brilliant. And it goes on to say in Deuteronomy, another warning, I think it's verse 17, beware lest you say in your heart, my power and might of my hand have gotten me this wealth. Right. And so we go from having this wonderful provision from God and then forgetting that it's from God, and then having forgotten that it's from God to believing we gave it to ourselves. Yes. Yeah, that's, and it's so it's such a slippery slope, and you don't always realize that you're even doing it. There's times, we're pastors. There's times where I preached a sermon, and I go, man, I did a great job. Or, those thank yous come up. Oh, that was a great message. That was great. And you start thinking, no one in this church can preach a good sermon like me. Print out all the positive emails and roll around in them on our beds. Right. Oh, that's going to be lovely. And it's like, wait a second. If God didn't give me this gift, if God didn't open up the scriptures and give me those insights throughout the week, then I would just go up there and be a buffoon for 30 minutes. Right. But it's so if you can do that with a sermon, you do it with anything, because it's human nature. It's fallen nature, isn't it? Yeah. This is all true. I think you could scale it up, as well as looking at the individual. Look at a whole church, right? Like we do for a living. We've talked often about money and kind of investments the church would have and endowments and that kind of thing. And the temptation is always to say, well, if we could just put X million in a fund, then we would never need to worry about, income again. Right. There are many, many churches that close with large amounts of money in the bank. Yeah. Yeah. I think that Pittsburgh really is a great example of, drive around the city of Pittsburgh and see all the beautiful churches that no one goes to. And it's like, maybe if you weren't building ivory towers, but you're putting money in the poor, and because the open hand of the poor is the altar, which we make sacrifices to God. That's NT, right? That's not me. But
are you quoting an Anglican?
Yeah, quoting an Anglican.
There we go.
But yeah, and so I think that there's a level of, man, once this becomes an inward thing, and we're about ourselves and that's not to say church isn't community, but the whole point is God's a God that reaches out and invites the lost to have a seat at the table. Yeah. And once we stop doing that, you're in for a bad run as a church. Yeah. And it's so easy just to slip into it. As soon as that comfort comes, you find yourself just forgetting your need for God. Right. Then praising yourself. And then that's not attractive to anybody. Right. I think some of the most powerful, unfortunately, I guess the most answered prayers that I get are when I pray to be uncomfortable. And, like shepherds will break a lamb's leg to keep it from running off. And so when it has its broken leg, it'll just hobble beside the shepherd. And then once it's healed, it'll still just hobble beside the shepherd because that's what it knows. Learned. It's learned. And, there's been times I've said, Lord, break my leg because I just keep wandering in this area. Wow. And he answers that, unfortunately. Wow. That's what, if you want God to answer your prayer, guaranteed, tell him to break your leg in an area to say, God, I keep wandering into pride, wandering into lust, wandering into whatever. And he'll snap your leg and he'll keep you close. I think the fact that I'm so terrified about that prayer is real evidence that the idol is there. Right. Because if that idol was not there, I'd just be laughing and joking and agreeing and amening. Yeah. To what you just said, but it terrifies me. Right. Because and that's the sad thing, that's the lie of an idol is there's nothing that should be more the only terrifying thing in life should be being away from God. Right. That's what truly should be terrifying. Right. Not any pain that brings me to him. And it's like when Jesus calms the storm, the reason that the disciples look foolish is it's better to be on a sinking boat with Jesus than the driest day apart from him on your own. Yeah. And yet these idols call us and say, no, I'll give you safety. I'll give you security. I'll give you identity. And we think, oh my gosh, if I leave that, then I'm going to be without security, without identity. And, we have to surrender that. We have to get our legs broke sometimes, get uncomfortable. We should look a little bit at comfort in 2 Corinthians because it's such a great passage. I've used it a lot on pastoral visits with people, which is 2 Corinthians 1, 2, 3. We can't go through the whole passage, but just the words comfort, suffering, affliction, they just get used over and over and over and over again. And I've found it helpful just to count on my fingers the number of times because the God of comfort who comforts us in affliction, comfort. It's amazing to read. What it says here is, blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of mercies and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all of our affliction, so that we may be able to comfort those who are in any affliction with the comfort with which we ourselves have been comforted by God. And it's a wonderful idea that the pattern of suffering and being healed by God, not God the leg breaker now, but God the kind of healer, is something that enables you then to come and show that healing and share that healing with other people who are in discomfort. God redeems discomfort. Yeah. And why is it we're so afraid of discomfort? It's because we have idols and we think those things are good. Yeah, and I think, you can even look to things in your human life to see there were situations that you used to be comfortable and then you got in discomfortable situations and then you got comfortable in them, and sometimes they're like good things like, so you used to hate going to the gym. Now, if I don't go to the gym for a couple of days, my back actually hurts from not working out. Interesting. Because, I have some unbalanced things. And so I have to really work my back out. But it used to be, well, man, my back hurt just because I went to the gym. Yeah. And now it's, it aches to be away from it. And I think for us, sometimes when you're new to walking with the Lord, this is an ache. These are muscles that are weak. And then yet what you'll find is you're going to get used to this and walking with the Lord, and then your muscles will ache to go back and to be like, it's been so long since I've had just a great prayer session of just surrendering myself to the Lord. Let me go do that.
Man, you're really into Tom Wright at the moment because he says a load of this stuff. Does he? Yeah.
So my life, so I'm a single guy. So, I mean, I wake up, do, my ministry work, and then I go to the gym and I'm listening to either John Piper or Tom Wright and their lectures.
And they hate each other.
They hate each other. I love them both.
Me too. Yeah, I know. I think they're great.
Yeah, and I just listen to lectures, Craig Keener as well, and things, and Audible. Get a lot of great books in. So sometimes I quote things I don't even know who I'm quoting. I'm not trying to rip people off. It's just at a certain point the books all run together.
Apparently, the thing that is most likely to end a ministry of all of the sins is plagiarism. Unbelievably.
Really?
Yeah. And I think, like you say, it's so, I can never remember who said what.
Yeah.
I mean, the number of people we've misquoted on this podcast.
Right. Right. I mean, yeah, and I never intentionally plagiarize.
Good for you.
But, but, there's definitely, I think Steve Jobs said it, but I don't know.
It was Mike, wasn't it?
But I don't know exactly. But Steve Jobs said, "Good artists copy, great artists steal." And he was just like, "Look, if this is a great idea, take the great idea." And so there's a lot of times in my church I'll say, "Well, Tom Wright said," or John Piper said. Try to keep it to a minimum, but there's sometimes, hey, this is a great idea, and there's just no way I can even compete with it. But I do really believe in bathing your mind in those. We've never lived in a world where I can turn on a YouTube lecture from a guy that is he Oxford or Cambridge?
Which one?
N.T. Wright.
Well, he was the Bishop of Durham.
Bishop of Durham.
I don't know academically where he's seated.
He was like one of the prestige. I think it was Oxford. It's like I can get a lecture from a professor from Oxford
just like that,
just for free.
Yeah,
I mean that's never been available. I can go listen to the best pastors in Dallas and Minnesota and wherever. And I think the alternative to that is, well, I just let the secular world's filth just run in my mind
all the time.
And it's like, nah, I'd rather just bathe my mind in that.
Which is intriguing because in a sense, and careful analogy, but Jesus is basically doing that in the wilderness because you can see that he's clearly living out Deuteronomy 8.
Yep. He's not flipping. Oh, hold on. Let me get to Deuteronomy. These are words on his tongue, especially Deuteronomy.
Yeah.
When you read that, and one of the things I've really become a big fan of is reading whole books of the Bible beginning to end.
That's what I've been doing too.
Yeah. That's actually how I got into, not in just ministry, but how I really became more than a nominal Christian. Yeah. I read the Gospel of John from the beginning to end, closed the book and said, if that is who Jesus is, I cannot call myself a Christian because this is different than, this isn't a Jesus with an American flag, shooting guns. And that's how my Jesus was sort of presented to me. And it's like, this is a radically different Jesus.
That's also the Jesus that was presented to us in the UK.
Yeah, okay.
But because your cars are cool. And that's really, really interesting, isn't it? Because he's definitely just living this simple, stripped down life with Deuteronomy as his companion.
Yes.
I mean, I've just got highlight here on my page. Be humbled. And he let you hunger and fed you with manna, which is sort of bread from heaven, which you did not know, nor did your fathers know, that he might make you know that man does not live by bread alone. And there's the bit that Jesus quotes.
Right.
It's not your stuff that is going to get you through.
Right.
It is the provision of God.
Right.
And your clothing did not wear out on you. Your foot did not swell, which is so cool. I mean, that's so earthy right there. You would, right? I mean, if you're walking around in the desert for 40 years, your foot would swell.
100%.
And that would really hurt.
Yep. And I think that's the interesting thing, so we shouldn't put God to the test, but I do really believe, like when I honor God with my money, or I honor God with sacrificing my pride, how he responds to that and honors that. Like,
he doesn't need then to trash your money,
right?
If it's not an idol.
Yep.
I mean, a good God would look, if you have a problem with an idol and he loves you, a good God would get rid of it.
Yes.
So whether you're asking that break my leg thing or not, a good God is going to come and do it anyway.
Yes.
That lamb never asked the shepherd to do it.
Yes.
So God is a great way actually to be in good shape is actually just not to worship the thing.
Yeah, and it's a lot easier to choose to say, okay, I'm sacrificing this idol, than for God to come and to rip it away.
Yeah,
and
which He will do if He loves you.
Yep, 100% He will. And so, I think His wrath is going to come on that idol, and it's like you need to clear the area. You need to get away from that, because if otherwise you're going down with it. And I mean that's really, in terms of salvation. I mean, if you're lost, if you die and go to hell, it's you join that idol on the way to its destination. And the call is to repent, to say, no, I'm disassociating myself. I renounce Satan.
Yeah,
I renounce this idol. I'm joining the kingdom. And like you're saying, a good God will, and perhaps a way to be comfortable, in a good godly sense, is to just say, God, I'm letting go of everything else. And I'm only going to hold to you, and whatever you put in my hands, I'll take, but I'm going to hold it with an open hand.
I mean, that little noise means that the Los Yetis that sings our tune approved of what you said. They only show up when they like what they hear. It's a crescendo, folks. Thank you.
Love it.
The Justinian crescendo. That's wonderful. Thanks for joining me. Really appreciate having you on.
Thank you. I appreciate this.
It's been great. This has been a podcast of Christchurch Fox Chapel, and also many other churches in Cranberry. Thanks. We'll see you all very soon. God bless.